Hello and welcome to One State, Medina Achat, which is a new YouTube channel, a platform that brings together people from all nations and all countries, three languages mainly, Hebrew, English, and Arabic. Anyone is welcome to be interviewed about the one state solution, one state in the Holy Land, in the land of Canaan, and many other names of this land. And there's only one solution after the Jews and the Arabs have been fighting for, I don't know, like 100 years. It's obvious that we can't keep fighting, and there's no two-state solution. There's only a one-state solution for everyone. Israelis need to wake up to many, many truths that have been hidden from them. And today we have Andrey X, who is a young activist and much more. Hi, Andrey. How are you today? Please tell us about yourself a little bit.
Hi, I'm great. I am an activist and a journalist, mostly working in the West Bank. And there are two main aspects to my work. One is protective presence operations, which consist of being present in Palestinian villages as parts of human rights advocacy organizations in order to prevent violence from the Israeli occupation forces and the settlers. And when it's not possible to prevent violence, to record it, to publish it, and to go to courts and so on.
Can you tell me a specific? Yes,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, nothing. That's
can you tell
what
me
I've been doing for the past year and a half.
a specific story from recent days, weeks, where you were actually part of protecting Palestinians from the settlers and the army?
So one story occurred, I think, about a week ago, and it's an example of something that happens every day in different places. But there are specificities to it. In the Al Ojja spring next to the town of Jericho, it's one of the last places in the West Bank where Palestinians are able to freely get water. It is still public property. It has not been completely taken over by the settlers. And now the settlers and the occupation forces are doing their best in order to change that, in order to occupy the spring, in order to ethnically cleanse the Palestinian community that is adjacent to it, and in order to prevent the Palestinians from coming to it. It's a popular destination where Palestinians from all over the West Bank and from 48 come to just rest.
So we have a situation where one group of people, the Israeli Jews, are expelling locals. And when I say locals, I mean their parents and grandparents, and previous generations go back at least 100 years, probably more like 200, 300, 400, 500 years. The Palestinians that are being chased off the land by the Jews, who probably arrived within the last 80 years. So how come this happens? I mean, who's allowing such a injustice situation to exist?
I mean, this has been the dominant policy of the Zionist movement since before the founding of the Israeli state. It has been one of the main purposes to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians off of their lands in order to make, in order to create a demographic Jewish majority for the Jewish state. And this is essentially, in one form or another, has been happening since the beginning of the Zionist movement.
So if I was to ask those Zionists, why are you doing this? Why are you ethnically cleansing the local Palestinians? From what I know, every single one of them would say because they're trespassing, because this is our country. God gave us and promised us, the Jews, this country, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago. And that's why we're back now, 4,000 years later, 3,000 years later, to claim the country that God himself in person promised us that it is ours. So obviously, whoever is not us cannot be here. So we are chasing these people off our land. Is that the official explanation?
So that is in pretty much those words. I've heard that many times from the settlers that are parts of the religious Zionist movement. But again, there are many other players who are working towards the same goal, like the Israeli occupation forces, which is not really a part of the religious Zionist movement, but it is nonetheless the instrument of the ethnic cleansing of the West Bank. And the same with the Israeli government, which is now under control of religious Zionists, but it has been for a very short period of time. It used to be under many different forms of like many different political ideologies, and nonetheless, this has been the impetus of the Israeli policy since the very beginning.
But if I asked the people, if I was to line up out of the 9 million citizens of Israel, I understand that 7 million are Jewish and 2 million are Palestinian Arabs. So if I was to take the 7 million Israeli Jews and ask them the same question, well, how come you are, I mean, sorry, I'll ask them, what, do you know what Zionism is? And are you a Zionist? Okay, if I was to ask the 7 million Jews, are you all Zionists? What do you think the answer would be of the majority?
You know very well that the vast majority of Israeli citizens are subscribing to Zionist beliefs, and it means different things for different people. I myself personally believe that it is, by definition, a racist ideology, as it is based on a regime of ethnic supremacy, and that is completely unacceptable to me. But that is the ideology that many people subscribe to. Yes.
So the majority of the 7 million would say, yes, we are Zionists. And if I was to say, well, do you know that Zionism is kind of almost racism in a way, or it has racist elements to it? Are you aware of that? What do you think most of them would say?
I mean, thanks to the system of propaganda which has been cultivated in this land for decades upon decades upon decades, people would take that very aggressively, as they have, and I have received for my positions and for my work hundreds of death threats over the course of the past months, and people disagree with that because the Israeli propaganda machine is functioning very well through various systems, not least through the army, because every Jewish Israeli citizen is required to be drafted, and it is kind of the system for indoctrination into the state ideology.
And what are the main subject elements, points of the indoctrination, the Zionistic indoctrination? So I would say fear of Arabs.
Yeah, it's one of the most common things that people talk about who are not religious Zionists. So religious Zionists believe that, okay, this is our land, God gave us to us, Palestinians are subhuman, so we can just kick them out. But people who are not religious Zionists generally go for the security concerns. Oh, but what if, if there is if the army is not in the West Bank, then we're going to get attacked. Oh, but terror attacks. Oh, but that. People live in fear for reasons X, Y, Z, and that is the general excuse that is given for the policies of the IOF and the Israeli government.
And it's working, because we're talking about intelligent people that do believe that are allowing themselves to be brainwashed in a way and behave in a very immoral way as well, believing they are protecting themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the situation with propaganda here is not entirely unique. This is a classic playbook of dictatorial states. It has been the case in many other places. It's just another right-wing regime, which has some specificities to it, as, for instance, the last created settler colony. It's, there are specific special elements to it, but again, yeah, it's not that difficult to get people brainwashed when you are in control of the state. So
the religious Jews are obviously in control, because the religious Jews are behind the today's form of Zionism, and you've just explained what that means. Now, I'm trying to draw lines between common lines between the Iranian, let's say, religious regime and the Israeli one. And I'm trying to see if there's a big difference. I mean, I'm trying to say, is it true to say that, well, you can't compare, because the Israeli Jews are way more civilized than the Iranian ones? And look at the Iranian ones. They're completely dominating their people. The women have to wear burqas, and it's like there's no freedom. In Israel, there's freedom. You can go to the beach. You can do things. You can go to the theater. You can fly abroad. You can open a startup company. So the Jews in Israel haven't actually controlled the Israelis in such a bad way compared to the Iranians. They're way worse. The religious controllers are way worse in Iran than in Israel. Don't you think so?
So there are two important things here. One, the religious Zionist movement has controlled the government only for a couple of years. And before then, it's mostly been secular Zionists who have been at the head of the ship. And the policy was, yes, not as extreme as now, but the ethnic cleansing has been going on here since the beginning of the Zionist movement, which started as a completely secular thing. Second, it's the religious the problems we have in the West Bank are, yes, part of it is with religious Zionist settlers who are committing terror attacks against Palestinians on a daily basis. But there are numerous other problems, as with the secular Israeli occupation forces, which are also facilitating the process of the ethnic cleansing. And on the other hand, we have religious communities which are not participating in the process of ethnic cleansing. We have Orthodox religious Jews in Jerusalem protecting Palestinians from pogroms from the IOF and the police and the Israeli government. So I think the problem is not quite with religion. The problem is with the Zionist ideology, which prescribes ethnic cleansing. And yes, right now it is committed directly by the most extreme religious Zionist movement, which is committing genocide in Gaza.
Why would a secular Zionist promote ethnic cleansing? Under what basis?
Well, at the beginning of the Zionist movement, it was about creating a demographic majority in the newly founded states. They needed a Jewish demographic.
What's wrong with the other majority? But what's wrong with the other demographic relating to the other people? I mean, why is that a problem for a secular Jew? What I'm trying to hint at is that it's to do with religion. Even the secular Jew, in his heart of hearts, he's a little bit religious. Otherwise, he wouldn't do this, would he?
I don't think it's about religion. I think it's about nationalism. It was Zionism at the beginning was a secular but an extremely nationalist movement. The idea of which was creating a Jewish state. They also had the idea of creating. So they needed to create a demographic majority or to institute an official apartheid system. But even if you institute an official apartheid system, it's still, like there are security concerns. If you're oppressing half the population of your country, it is going to blow up in your face, as we're seeing now. This is generally the result. So the ethnic cleansing of Palestine was required and started in 1947. The hottest period started in 1947, but it's been happening since the beginning of the second wave of immigration.
I see. So if we were to connect you to the soul of Jabotinsky, and you were to just update him and say, look, Jabotinsky, I'm sorry to say, but I know that you had a dream and your dream was blah, 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 but actually I have bad news. So can you just say it in your words?
Well, Jabotinsky was the father of, I guess, what we have now with this famous essay about the Iron Wall, where he argued that the only way to create Israel in this land is to essentially suppress the Palestinians and the surrounding Arab states to such an extent that they will just give up hope and give up the fight. And as
but what does that mean, give up? Commit suicide?
To just be beaten into submission, to be unable to fight back.
But no one has ever done that in history, from what I understand. There's no one example where a people just accepted it and just okay with it. I mean, you could say the Indians in America had no chance. Yeah, I guess there are examples of it. Okay, yes. So that's what he...
genocide and ethnic cleansing that were very successful.
So Jabotinsky was hoping to be one of them, but... In actual fact, from what you can see?
In actual fact, it's they immediately ran into problems because there was it was no longer the 18th century, and there was international pressure, and that's why the dream of Ben Gurion of conquering the Sinai and the North Lebanon and so on could not be realized because, for instance, in 1956, when they conspired with the British government and the French government to annex the Sinai from Egypt, because of the international pressure, it had to be given up. As there are limits to things that you can do. They managed to expel 80% of Palestinians from the land. And they managed to make it so that the refugees could not come back home. But for instance, the process of the ethnic cleansing of the West Bank is much slower than the Nakba that happened in 1947.
Okay, so back to my question: why has Jabotinsky's vision failed, or is it about to fail?
Well, I hope that it's that it will not pan out, but it's in general, we have watched for the past 100 years a failure of the policy of the Iron Wall, because it just doesn't work. But right now there is an attempt to genocide the population of Gaza, and there have been government documents suggesting the expulsion of everybody from Gaza into the Sinai, and there are drawn up projects for populating Gaza with settlers, and there are projects that are happening of taking over the West Bank. A couple of days ago, I was in Turmusaya, a Palestinian village in the north of the West Bank, and right next to it there is the settlement of Shiloh, which is like this nice secular settlement where they have a university and they take people on tours to the vineyards from Tel Aviv and from Jerusalem. But in fact, it was built between Ariel and another settlement, the name of which I don't remember, as a way of creating this line of settlements and essentially securing that land so that during any potential negotiations, they would be able to say, oh, it's fact on the ground, there's nothing we can do, those settlements need to go to us. And this has been the process since the start of the occupation of the West Bank.
So what do you think, how is Zionism failing? Give me examples. Why is it failing?
Why is it failing? Well, that depends on what you're trying to achieve. Because for the minds of the religious Zionist settlers, the goal is to conquer the land completely for their movement, for religious Jews, and to kick out everybody who is not there. For, I don't know, evangelical Christians in the US, the goal is to bring Jews to Israel in order to start the apocalypse. For me personally, the goal is prosperity and equality for everybody who lives in the land. I personally don't like the concept of borders in general, and I think everybody should be able to live where they want, but you should not be able to come and kick out and harass and attack and kill the people who are already living there, which is exactly what the Zionist movement has been doing since its inception. So is it failing? In my mind, it's failing because it is going directly against any kind of humanitarian vision for what this place should be.
What do you think about the one-state solution?
I think that right now I'm not optimistic about any solution, to be perfectly honest with you. This is not going in any good directions. I am very much against the two-state solution because I believe that it's just about as unviable as any other one, but it is also keeping an apartheid state within 48 borders. And, I believe that there can be no just end to this conflict without a full right of return for Palestinians who were expelled from here over the course of history and their descendants. I believe that needs to be implemented, and that can only happen in a one-state solution.
So what about the ones let's talk about it. Let's say it's going to happen. How is it going to happen? So we're going to have, there's 7.5 million Jews on the land and 7.5 million Arabs, I understand. Yes. So we are almost equal, which doesn't matter. We're going to have like a country with a constitution and suddenly everyone's going to be equal, or what?
Right now, I'm not like my education is in anthropology. This is not my area of expertise. I believe that right now the first priority that we have is to end the apartheid system, and I think that one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about the situation in Palestine today is that the problem is the mutual hatred of Israelis and Palestinians, and that there is so much bad blood and attacks and so on, which
which
everything,
bad blood, which what?
Which has collapsed my system for holding the camera. Okay.
There's so much bad blood.
Yeah, which is preventing this peaceful solution. But right now, if we click our fingers and suddenly there is no more mutual hatred and everything is fine, that doesn't solve the problem.
It doesn't solve the problem. I wonder why. It might not solve the problem for reasons beyond our imagination. And I see that Andrey is stuck. So perhaps we can have another. Oh, there you are. You're back. Yes, you were saying?
Yeah, if we click our fingers and suddenly there is no more mutual hatred, the apartheid stays, and so do all the systems that are essentially privileging one ethnic group here over another. And the first priority that we have right now is dismantling these systems of oppression and stopping the apartheid. And then there can be some path towards healing the conflict and towards mutual.
Why apartheid? Many Israelis don't believe that there is an apartheid regime here.
This is very simple. There are two ethnic groups, and your rights largely depend on which ethnic group you belong to. This is especially evident in the West Bank, even though apartheid exists within 48 borders as well. But in the West Bank, for instance, you have me and you have my Palestinian friends, and if we go to, say, a demonstration together, or we're just driving somewhere, if we get detained and arrested, which happens routinely for no discernible reason, then I will go through a civil Israeli court system, and my friends will go through the military system, to military courts, which have way more authority to do something, to hold them without trial, there will be no recourse if they get beaten up, tortured, which my friends have been, and it depends entirely on the color of our passport. I'm Jewish. I have an Israeli passport, so my life there is much easier. And this is just one of a million examples. There are roads that are inaccessible to based on a piece of paper. The driving in general in the West Bank with a green Palestinian plate is extremely difficult compared to driving with a yellow plate. I have done both. It's the checkpoints are insane if you are driving in a Palestinian car, and essentially the Israeli state is doing everything to make the life of Palestinians in the West Bank as difficult as possible, and to promote the settler movement.
Where have you been in the West Bank in the last year?
I've been to a lot of the West Bank in the past year. I've been to most major cities. I've been to the north, the south, the Jordan Valley, Jericho, Beit Lahem, Hebron, Jenin, Nablus. I've been to.
So tell me, what's special about Nablus as a city?
Nablus, well, I guess what is Nablus known for is its militant resistance against Israeli occupation, and it has a large refugee camp there, which houses Palestinians who were ethnically cleansed from 48 borders during the Nakba, and they're living in horrible conditions with barely working sewage, with great economic deprivation, and they also get bombed into oblivion by the Israeli occupation forces every few days.
What about Ramallah?
I've been to Ramallah very briefly. Ramallah is less intense than Jenin and Nablus. There are better living conditions, but especially, if you go to refugee camps, it's they usually tend to look very difficult.
Have you been to any?
Yeah, I was in the Jenin refugee camp maybe a couple of weeks ago, right after it was bombed by the Israeli occupation forces, and after they came in and destroyed the roads with a bulldozer, and they killed 6 people, including just a store owner that whose family was right there when I was there.
How are you being treated by the locals in the West Bank whenever you go there?
I am treated generally very warmly. Look, I'm a journalist. I'm a human rights advocate. A lot of people just know me, and I go everywhere with friends, and I explain it. And in general, like journalists go to the West Bank, and it's fine. And in general, when I go to a Palestinian home, if you go to a Palestinian home, generally you're just going to be offered tea and asked everything about who you are and what you're doing, and you will be faced with hospitality and interest. If you go there with a gun, then that's not going to be the same.
Of course. And what else? I mean, aren't you afraid? Have you never had scary moments, when a Muslim said to you, "You fucking Israeli, this, you that, you're a Jew like all of them, and you shouldn't be let in here," or anything like that?
No, I've actually never had that in the year and a half of my work there. I have been pointed weapons at. Settlers drove a bulldozer at me. I have been attacked, beaten
by Arabs, by Muslims, or by Jews?
No, only by settlers and Israeli army. There were shock grenades thrown at me. I was arrested. And there has been a lot of violence and attempted violence in my direction, and it has only been from Israeli settlers and the Israeli occupation forces.
Do you think it's dangerous for Israelis to go to the West Bank? If an Israeli happens to have, let's say, a friend in Israel, let's say in Jaffa, so you have a Jew living in Tel Aviv, and he has a friend, an Arab from Jaffa, and the Arab friend says, "You want to come to Ramallah with me? We're going to go walk around, buy some stuff, eat in a restaurant, and come back." Should the Israeli Jew go or not, from a security perspective?
Look, in general, the West Bank is obviously more dangerous than 48 borders, than Tel Aviv, than Jerusalem. It is an area under military occupation. There are clashes, there are attacks, there are obviously dangers involved, and you should definitely recognize them before deciding to go. But at the same time, like it's not the way that it's described on massive boards that say Israelis don't go there. This is a Palestinian village. If you go, you'll get killed. Like that's not how it works.
Yeah, but my point is, it's a dangerous place, obviously, because of what you just explained. But it's nothing personal against me. There's no threat for me by the mere fact that I have an Israeli passport, and they know, oh look, there's a Israeli Jew here. We better kill him. Is that potentially an issue which you've heard? Sorry.
I'm sure there are people who hate Israelis just for being Israelis, who hate Jews just for being Jews. I'm sure it happens. I've never actually met somebody like that. I'm sure it exists somewhere. Generally, the problem that Palestinians have are with the occupation itself and with the occupation forces, with the people who have been, with the system which has been destroying their homes and killing their family and friends.
Uh-huh. So what would you like, if anything could go the way you want it to, so what would you hope for?
In general, I hope for the dismantling of the apartheid and the building of a system which accommodates the needs of everybody who lives here. But I think that's not realistic, maybe even within our lifetimes or our children's lifetimes. So I think that what is semi-realistic at the moment is a United Nations peacekeeping force for starters in the West Bank, in terms of the West Bank issues. Because the job that is done right now by me and my colleagues who are being constantly attacked, beaten, and arrested should be done by people with international authority and with weapons. Because then the Israeli occupation forces and the settlers won't be able to do to them what they're doing to us right now. We need to stop the process of ethnic cleansing and then work towards reversing it.
I see. Okay, Andrey X, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I think you're doing an amazing job. We need more people like you. I enjoyed every moment, and for that, I'd like to say to you, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And it is, if somebody wants to join me, it is entirely possible. If you're from abroad, you can contact the International Solidarity Movement, and if you have an Israeli passport, you can contact Looking the Occupation in the Eye. And Michael, if you'd like to go at some point to the West Bank with me, you are very much invited, and I'll be happy to take you around.
So we're going to put your details underneath the interview. So if people want to contact you, they can. So Andrey X, thank you very much.
Thank you.